Well, we have some big news that we're going to start here with, because this will put us in the good mood. Bob Barnett, famed wrestling tape trader, attorney, scenester, troublemaker. He's done it all.
One of the OGs from back in the 80s.
80s and 90s, and he's one of my very good friends, and he's recently reemerged on social media, and if there was anything to make him post something, this was it. It's an article, and actually there's a news report. We may have some audio here we can play from San Francisco. The headline, San Francisco aims to collect bill from 1993. Man fights City Hall. There's a quote, "I'm not paying a dime." Let's hear some audio from the newscast. This is NBC in the Bay Area.
Okay, tonight we respond to a former San Francisco resident who's fighting City Hall over a very old bill.
Yeah, old as in the 1990s, back in our college days.
Yeah.
That's old. Let's bring in our consumer investigator, Chris Kimura. Chris.
Good evening. This is a government gripe. One man's weaving tale from the 90s to today, with an eye-opening lesson for everyone.
I'm going to stop right now. You have any thoughts, without saying it out loud, do you have any thoughts where this is going?
I have no clue where this is headed.
All right, this is going to pop me and you and like 50 other people, and everyone else is just going to have to play along.
Okay.
It's the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me, and I've been around pro wrestling, and that's about as ridiculous as it gets.
In the 90s, Mike Lano snapped pro photos of pro wrestlers duking it out. Now he's going to the mat with the city of San Francisco over this tax bill.
I'm not paying a dime because I don't owe it.
Dr. Lano's day job in the 90s was dentistry, a small practice at Sutter and Stockton. Each year, the city billed him a business equipment tax called unsecured property tax. Recently, Dr. Lano got a collections notice.
After 28 years, they're claiming I was late by X amount of days.
The bill shows the city charged him a $36 penalty in 1993. Then, through the Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden years, that $36 has mushroomed with interest and fees to more than $450. Here's the hitch. Lano insists he paid his bill on time in person in 1993, and he says he's heard zilch from the city in 28 years.
No emails, no calls, nothing.
Until now. The city told us it has 47,000 unpaid tax accounts, totaling $146 million due. The oldest accounts are...
I'll stop it here for... They haven't called, they haven't written, no one has said anything. But Dr. Mike Lano, or at least when he was a doctor...
They were probably scared he'd get back with them. And then they'd start getting those envelopes with all the weird serial killer-like scribbling on the sides and in the margins of pages copied at random from miscellaneous publications that were not germane to the communication. And stuff like that.
You know, it really is an amazing, if you look at it like wrestling, it's an amazing story. Here you have a kid who grows up in Los Angeles, going to the Olympic Auditorium, hanging out with the children of celebrities, falls in love with wrestling, eventually moves to San Francisco, and I believe in his time there, didn't he once get banned for life from the Cow Palace? Because he got into a fight with the new owner after that disastrous convention, and now he's fighting he's fighting City Hall. Maybe this is like a LA San Francisco thing. And now I believe he moved away from San Francisco.
I like the way they glossed over in the 90s. His day job was a small dental practice. I wonder, what is the dental board of officials called? Could we check back with them out there and see what year it was that his license was revoked?
Well, it was in the 90s. So, I mean, there is some truth to some of whatever is going on.
But anyway, and here's the thing, maybe because we all know that Mike Lano lives in several realities at the same time. He occupies different planes at the same time in different dimensions. Maybe in whatever dimension he was occupying that day, he went in and paid the tax bill, but it was an alternate universe, and the one he's in right now never got it.
Yeah, he's saying he paid in person. Is there any sort of receipt? Is it just like, I remember going in there and I talked to a woman?
Well, but here's the thing. I'm the only person that would have a receipt from 28 years ago. You can't blame him for that.
No, we can't.
Of course, I would actually have notated on the receipt the woman's name and probably gotten her phone number and written down a description of the clothing she was wearing.
But, however, if there was a receipt, more than likely Mike Lano would have used it and written on it to send it with something to someone for no good reason. So it's probably out there.
A note so if you've ever gotten, like you said, maybe 60 people out there now are just rolling because you had to have the whole Lano experience of knowing and or associating. But maybe somebody out there has it because he wrote him a note of sending them pictures and then asking them to credit him when they used the pictures that he sent that they didn't ask for.
That weren't his to begin with.
That in some cases weren't his to begin with. Or that's poor Kit Parker. That's the reason why that some of the rest of the Wrestling Gold releases, well, the ones that the Wrestling Gold series that we did in the 90s, the Smoky Mountain and the OVW stuff, have a couple pictures on the cover that people that aren't on any of the program anywhere inside, because he thought that when I asked him, I said, do you need any pictures or anything for the DVD covers? He said, no, I got the guy from the magazine. I thought he meant like Bill Apter, right? He was Lano. And Lano was sending pictures of people that weren't even on the fucking program. And they, so it's.
I didn't know that.
Yes. That was just like 4 or 5 years after Lano got me booked in Japan. All he had to do was, I've told this story on the program, but there's new listeners. In, what was it, I just left Crockett, or left WCW, Turner Broadcasting. So it had to be 1991, right?
That would have been the year that Universal was happening, so yeah.
Yes. Still living in Charlotte, and it was UWA, Universal Wrestling Association Alliance, whatever. It was a lucha group running shows in Japan. And they were using legitimate lucha talent from Mexico, but they were flying them over and they were running the shows in Japan. And Lano writes me a letter that says, oh, you could be their booker. And now, besides the fact I'm setting up. Well, go ahead. What?
I may remember the story slightly better just because I remember one detail that you got. He didn't write you a letter. He saw you at the Goodhart show, and he started pitching you on it face to face.
Because I knew I didn't ever visit Mike. We didn't hang out together in our personal lives, so I figured he wrote. But no, he wrote a letter for me is what he did.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said, you can be their booker. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't speak Spanish or Japanese. And I'm in the process of setting up Smoky Mountain Wrestling, but I obviously didn't tell him that. But I said, I'm fine, Mike. And I'm not going to Japan, and I don't speak Spanish. I don't know anything about their talent. But thank you for thinking of me. So a couple months later, however long it was, I'm sitting there at my house in Charlotte, and the mail comes, and I get a letter from, and was it Shinma?
It was Shinma. Yeah.
It was Shinma. That was the guy that was the money behind it, right? And who was a fairly famous and infamous name in Japanese wrestling. It was Shinma was involved with Inoki and was higher up in New Japan. And then I get, you know this better than I do, the one foot in front of another. He was ousted in the scandal also, right? Financial scandal with Sayama, Tiger Mask, the original Tiger Mask, revealed shit.
You know, there's a whole lot of interesting stuff, and a lot more has come out in recent years, and I don't want to go down a side road too much with this, but
right.
When the scandal happened, and Inoki was in trouble, and Shinma took a lot of the hit, even though Inoki did too, and they started the UWF with Maeda and his crew and Fujiwara, and then of course you had Sayama as the Super Tiger. There is now a belief that Inoki actually was behind it. That he set up his own second group with the idea of bringing them back, which eventually happened. But different things happened with Sayama there, Shinma there, and eventually Maeda, Takada, Fujiwara, a bunch of those guys jumped back. But there is a belief now that Inoki was, for at least a time, supporting. And it makes a lot of sense, too, because why in the middle of New Japan's deal with WWF did Shinma get Maeda and the UWF on WWF house show tours? You know, it just...
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting things.
So he set up his own opposition so he could bring them back together. Well, smart man. But anyway, so Shinma at the time financing this lucha group in Japan. And I get a letter from Shinma saying, Mr. Cornette, thank you for your communication. I haven't communicated with them. The only human being that has had this idea, that has mentioned that I should have this position, that thinks that somehow this is a thing that should happen, is Dr. Mike Lano. And he was trying to, they're very interested in you. Why? Why would they be interested in me, right? I'm an American manager. So anyway, I get the letter from Shinma, and he says, maybe, apparently, Lano has written the letter like I'm asking him for the job, just like that Lano was pitching me that they were interested in me for the job. So Shinma writes back and basically says, maybe we fly you over to see our tour and then discuss. Like maybe we'll bring you over to see if you know who any of these people are and what the fuck, and we'll go from there. Trying to let me down easy for something that I didn't want to begin with. And then I had to write Shinma a letter back because I felt bad. And I said, sir, I am so sorry, but apparently someone has contacted you on my behalf, and it's not that I'm disinterested in your promotion, but I'm currently otherwise occupied.
Didn't Wally Yamaguchi also call you on their behalf to actually set up the dates? And get
Yes. Yes, he's calling. He's like, I understand you want to come over. I'm like, well, no, Wally. But as soon as I mentioned the name Lano, he was, Wally was,
It would have been great. Those Japanese magazines at the time would have just had you sitting in the crowd watching.
Yeah.
It would have been amazing.
I would have just said, okay, everybody in blue, you go over tonight. Everybody in green does the job. If you're wearing red, you're the heel. That's what.
In surprising news this week, Jim Cornette is managing Negro Casas in Japan. No one saw this coming, except Mike Lano. Oh, see, I told you this would get us in a good mood.
Well, I was already there, but thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And there's the hijinks of wrestling's one-time dentist, Dr. Mike Lano, an important part of the wrestling ecosystem. It's not just the wrestlers that do wacky stuff.